Welcome, everyone, to our series, Masterminds Lessons in Leadership. I'm here with my co-host, Peter Linneman, and we're here to discuss the intersection of strategy and leadership, the vortex of what makes great companies great. And we are very, very pleased to welcome Chris Nassetta, who is the president and CEO of Hilton Hotels. Chris joined Hilton, hard to believe, Chris, in 2007.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. I know. 14 years. 14
That's
years.
right.
It's crazy when I hear you say it. Yes.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun most of the time.
Wow.
That's right. And you partnered with Blackstone to then take the company public. Prior to Hilton, Chris was the president and CEO of Host Hotels back in Reitland and is also a board member of the CoStar Group. So with that, Peter, I will turn it over to you to start the questioning.
Well, Chris, it's a great pleasure. And as you said, I haven't seen you for a while.
I know.
But I haven't seen much of anybody.
It's like I haven't seen Bill. Well, I've seen him on a screen. Obviously, Peter, you and I have been communicating, but none of us have seen each other. It is a strange existence, and one that I will put my hand up and say I'm ready to move on here real quickly.
Well, so are we.
Bill and Peter, thank you for having me. And it sounds like you got a great group of folks you're doing these podcasts.
Well,
with some great
we're really pleased to have you. Let me start out with, if we'd have gone back 14, 15 months ago, the industry was already in a lot of change and globalization and Airbnb and all these things. And then you get the pandemic. How are you formulating a strategy? What type of strategy? How do you think about it? What are others in the industry, and how are you reacting to what they're trying to do?
I can't speak for others in the industry, although I have opinions. They're probably not relevant. You can ask them. I think from our point of view, there's sort of a short and a long, right? In the when the what hit the fan this time last year, we were obviously quick on our feet to formulate a short-term strategy to address the crisis, because you were suffering historic declines, broadly in our industry, right? You're talking about revenues off 90%. I mean, even in the Great Recession, 9/11, the S&L crisis, all of which were pretty bad, for real estate and bad for lodging. We never saw anything like this. So I would say,
audience, Chris, just for the audience, what was the low drop, the drop in the crisis, for example? 10%, 15%?
In the financial crisis?
Yeah, what was your occupancy drop during that versus you just said?
We saw RevPARs in any particular year probably drop at the most, high teens, 20%.
Yeah, I just wondered for the viewer.
In this case, while we were off 90% ish, in April of last year, for the full year, most of the industry was, call it 55 to 65% off. So, three plus times as bad. So, listen, in the short term, we put in place a bunch of strategies, which, fell into three buckets. I call them my 3 Ps, which, I've said so many times. Sorry for anybody that's already heard me on somebody else's podcast, but protect the 3 Ps were protect the people. I mean, we serve 200 million people a year. We have 450,000 team members.
Wow.
Across 120 countries, and people were in harm's way, right? We had customers stuck all over the world. We have team members that, have worked throughout this crisis, the beginning, middle, and end. So it was about making sure we came up with strategies to get our customers safely where they needed to be. If they had to be with us, that we made sure that that our hotels were safe and secure, and the hygiene was what it needed to be to protect them, that we dealt with PPE and testing and all of the hygiene protocols in the hotels to make sure our team members were safe. And so there was a lot of work done around that. The second P was protect the business. Obviously, when you're suffering at that, the beginning of this thing, 90% decline. I mean, listen, no business is built for this, right? Now, thankfully, we did a bunch of things, not early on, but in the lead up to it, because my own belief was that we were at the end of a business cycle. I mean, I think you sort of agreed with me. I religiously read your stuff, and I didn't know what would flip it, and I didn't know that it would be COVID and it would be this severe. But I thought, listen, after a 12-year run, things aren't going to be great forever. And so we did a bunch of things to fortify our balance sheet. Extending maturities, doubling credit facility, and a bunch of other things, so that we were in a really great place when COVID hit, to just literally make a couple phone calls and have $4 billion of liquidity sitting on our balance sheet. But we had to do a bunch of other things to protect the business in terms of, right sizing the business. Our business is complex. We have part of our corporate overhead, and then we run effectively a multi-billion-dollar co-op on behalf of all of our owners. Well, if our owners aren't paying money in, it's a population zero game, which is it's a great system when it works. And when your revenues disappear, you got to right size it. And you've made commitments, right? Marketing, technology spend to the tunes of billions of dollars, but then the revenues aren't coming in. So, we had to right size not just our business in the sense of like our corporate G&A, but we had to right size the whole enterprise in a radical way, the likes that really nobody's ever had to done. The third P, which I'll focus on more, and it sort of leads to the longer term, is prepare for recovery. I think the biggest mistake, in my humble opinion, that leaders make in a crisis is you get caught up either because you have to, because you didn't put yourself in a good position going into it. Thankfully, that wasn't our problem. Or you sort of panic, and all you're focused on, myopically, is the moment. Like, oh my God, the people and the health crisis and, liquidity, and, you have fear and panic that sort of takes over. And what happens is, master of the obvious, you miss the opportunity. So, the large part of my time, honestly, since this time last year, maybe it was late March, April, in addition to the core first two Ps, was about how do we position ourselves and prepare for recovery? Because we know what goes down comes back up, and we're in a good place. I mean, it's horrible and it's impactful to people's lives. I'm not trying to minimize any of that, but we're in a good place to survive and get to the other side. And so a lot of my time was spent on preparing for the recovery. Like, how do we make sure with all of our key stakeholders, our team members, our customers, our owners, importantly, and our communities, who are huge stakeholders of ours, that we've done what we can do to serve them, even if they're not traveling, even if we're in the middle of a crisis, so that when we get to the other side, the company's stronger and better, and our enterprise brand and our individual brands are better for the work that we did. And so, I'm going to answer your question, Peter. You guys know I'm loquacious, as I'm told, but so for me, the strategy then has morphed very much to a long-term strategy of, all right, what is the world going to look like, and what do we need to do? And you're right, we did have competing forces pre-COVID, but here's the thing: we were in an unbelievable time. We were in what I infamously kept calling, and still will, the golden age of travel. I mean, notwithstanding Airbnb and all this, we were hitting all-time highs in everything: revenues, profitability, growth rate, demand, underpinning all of it was crazy increases in demand, for all types of travel. And notwithstanding Airbnb and these other things, that wasn't affecting us. Even in the face of all that, we were continuing to grow. And I would argue that Airbnb and some of these other things that have happened have actually been, in a strange sense, helpful. They've democratized travel. I mean, there are a lot of stats out there that would tell you, they've allowed people that couldn't afford to travel, and then they get the bug and they want to travel more. Inevitably, we get some share of their wallet. And so, as I think about the long term, here I think, the lesson of my nearly 40 years of doing this is, don't lose sight of the long term, and don't lose sight of what's underneath all of this. And that is, when the world normalizes, and it will, okay, it never feels like it will, because when it's dark, it feels like, when it's light, it feels like the light will stay out forever. And when it's dark, the sun will never come up, right? That's just how we that's how we do things. Like, we never think at the top it goes down, at the bottom it comes back. But here's the thing, it does. And there'll be some things that are different. That's a whole nother sort of conversation, which we can either get into or not. But I would say to you, I would bet a lot of money, effectively I have most of my net worth, that when we wake up in 2 or 3 years or so, that the demand patterns will look a lot more like they did than they do. And so if you sort of keep underneath it all that people really do want to travel for leisure, even more that they do need to travel for business, maybe for different reasons, different trip occasions, and they want to congregate more than ever, then the real answer to your question is, long term, what we have to do is recognize we have to do what we were doing and do it even better, which is we have to deliver the most reliable and friendly experiences customers have, to give them the best product that is most. So this is our strategy: the best product, most consistent, high quality product with the amenities that they need, the best, most friendly service, the best technology that connects it all together, loyalty that connects the entire ecosystem in a way where they'll pay us a big premium, which is what they've done. And by the way, fun little fact, our premium in COVID, even though our core customers not even traveling, is the highest it's ever been. People want things they can trust more now, not less now. And so what I say to my team is, like, the worst thing we can do is sort of forget what got us here, right? What got us here is we deliver consistent, high quality product and service, and we wrap it with technology, loyalty, and these other things. And so coming out of this long term, we just have to do it and do it better. And then we have to do it you continue to innovate with technology and all the other things, because the world clearly was being digitized, and clearly that pace of that innovation is only going to pick up. And there's an element of our business that can be digitized, which we've been working on. And there's elements that are always going to be people serving people and the physical elements of it. But we have to bridge those two. We call it phygital. We have to be really good at connecting the physical and the digital. And so that's sort of I could keep going, but I won't, because Bill's going to cut me off.
I know Bill's dying. Bill's dying.
I love you for so many reasons, but
I know I saw Bill's screen went blank, which usually means I thought I was going to get like a hook.
Your enthusiasm, my friend, is infectious. Let's segue a little bit to the subject of leadership. As you and I've known each other over the years, you continue to focus on this concept of culture.
Well, listen, I'll try and be more succinct this time. But I'm even more passionate about this, because I would tell you that the reason we are where we are as a company, both from the origins 102 years ago, but also from my time in the last 14 years here, was culture. If you say, well, what was the secret sauce? Well, the secret sauce initially was this guy, Conrad Hilton, founded this company on a noble premise that he said, I think I can make the world a better place. And he was one of the first truly international business people, that said, boy, if I can make a safe, comfortable place for people to travel all over the world, what will happen? They'll go, they'll travel, they'll experience cultures, they'll get to know each other better, and it will lead to in some way, shape, or form, to greater peace in the world, because the more people understand each other and respect each other's cultures, that understanding will lead to good things. That's sort of the premise upon which this incredible company was founded. What I would say is, it's a longer story. When I got here 14 years ago, let's just say we had gotten away from that founding principle, and we had become more of a holding company that did a lot of financial engineering transactions and a lot less about culture. So when Blackstone called me, because I knew Hilton from the outside looking in, I said, listen, I know what's wrong with it, because I've been competing with them and dealing with them. We have a lot of things to do on cost structure and growth and all, but the first thing that we need to do is blow up the culture and rebuild it, but not blow it up in the sense of away from what its founding principles was, reconnect it to those founding principles, blow up what existed in the moment. And so we did it. It's a long story, but it worked. We rebuilt the culture. Probably the thing we're a service industry, a business of people serving people, 450 50,000 of them. That's probably the thing I'm most proud of in my time here that we've accomplished. We're the number one great place to work in the United States of America 2 years running, and the number two great place to work in the world 2 years running. That's hard to do. That is,
Wow.
and so that if you think about like what's been the alpha of this business, it's culture. So everything is about culture. Then fast forward, so we get here, a year ago, and the world is blowing up all around us. We're having to furlough probably, sadly, 60% of our global workforce. Ultimately led to significant reductions in force. And for those team members of mine that are watching this, I hope they would agree, but certainly my sense and all our pulse surveys would say this. I would say our culture's even stronger in a funny way. We leaned on it hard, like when you build a culture, because that is how you are resilient in a difficult time. If you have nothing to lean on, then everybody, all the spokes start flying off the wheel. But we had really nurtured our people and our culture, created a really family-like environment. And so even though we had to do all of these tough things, people understood that it was necessary to protect the business, to protect the greatest number of people to get the business to the other side. And when I talk to folks, and I talk to thousands, tens of thousands of them, and we poll them, we're not light on data. I think, and the Great Place to Work data, that's come out, you'll see. It suggests that people are more engaged in our organization than they were, even though they were very engaged, and trust their leaders broadly more. And so, it's all been about the culture. In COVID, it was about leaning on it, but a whole, a little bit different take on it. But everything we've accomplished and what our ability to get through the last year has been because we have really invested in our culture.
May I ask just a side question, Bill, on that? You mentioned from Conrad Hilton, and somehow they lost it and you arrived. How does a company lose that?
It's like, here's what I'd say. It's like, you're king of the hill. It's just time. It's like muscles atrophy if you don't use them. And we just didn't for decades use those muscles. So in the beginning, you think about it, there was this noble cause and we were like this upstart and, we were growing all around the world. What people forget today, certainly young people, we invented the business as you know it. Like we were the first one to do a full service hotel. Like somebody had to figure out, like you put meeting space in a restaurant and rooms. Like we were the first people to do an airport hotel. We're the first people to have a reservation system, a loyalty system. We invented the pina colada and the brownie, for crying out loud, right? So, we invented, but then I think you get on top of that hill, okay, and leaders change and, our founders shifted out and you have different leaders that have a different set of sensibilities. And I think, you were the pioneer, you were sort of leader. And I think it's easy to start taking it for granted and taking the culture for granted because, it was powerful and it was there and it was such a big driver, which I think is the lesson in all of this, right? Which I say to my team all the time. I say the greatest thing I am proud of, I already told you, the Great Place to Work being number one, which is incredibly hard to do, particularly in a service industry. We knocked off Salesforce as an example, who was on the top of the list. But I say it's also the biggest risk we have. And in the sense that we end up in the same place, that we end up like patting ourselves in the back. Yay, us, look how great we are. Now, COVID has sort of helped make sure that we remain super humble. But that is the risk. I think when you're on top, it's like you're top of the hill, everybody wants to knock you off. When you're on the top of the hill, I think it's easy, to get too comfortable and not invest in it. And a culture is a living, breathing thing and changing, and the times are changing, and the sensibilities. It's just a combination of, sort of the sensibilities of the people of the company, and generationally, those sensibilities can change radically, right? Think about what's going on in the last 2 or 3 years in the U.S. alone on the social issues and ESG issues broadly here and around the world. The sensibilities of what our people care about and culturally we have to focus on have changed. So we have to change with it. So I think the lesson is like never let up. The lesson is like you never let up on driving top line. If you run a business well, you never let up on being disciplined on costs. You never let up on like driving unit growth, all those fun things that we all like to talk about and the metrics that investors focus on. You also can't ever let up on the culture, because if you let up on that, all the rest of the stuff eventually, will suffer. Period. End of story.
Bill, if we could just get Chris to stop these one-word answers.
Yeah, but Chris,
We might have a
One-word
show
answers,
here.
right? Yes and no. From here on out, yes, it's a lightning.
No. So I have
Go ahead, Peter.
You mentioned, we mentioned the Blackstone. You came in and the private and the. Is it different driving a strategy? Is it different developing a strategy as a private vehicle versus a public vehicle? Or is it just you do what's needed?
There we go. All right, well, I'm going to go on to my question now.
I'll give you a little bit more. No, I mean, the truth is, if you were to go objectively look at the core of what I've done with the team here and our key priorities and how we focused it on, a vision, a mission, set of values, and key strategic priorities, it's been very consistent. I don't view it as any different. There's so much good that comes out of being private that applies to being public. It shouldn't be different, and it hasn't been.
So, Chris, let me switch gears here a little bit. You've been a big proponent of spreading world peace through both international trade and through hospitality. Why is that so important to you?
Well, I sort of covered it. It's important to me because it is our North Star. I mean, if in the end,
but
to build,
why is it important to you, though?
Well, it means to me that it's part of doing something, making the world a little bit better place. And so for me, just like everybody else, I think in our company, we all come to work, we work really hard. Everybody has their individual part. Some of those jobs are really hard. And all of us want to feel like when we're done with the day, we've done something that matters, right? And that it isn't just that I cleaned, I changed beds in a room, or I cooked, eggs for breakfast, or I did what my part is, as a CEO. We all want to feel like when we put it all together, it's something that actually is making a difference. And so in our case, we go back to the founding mission, which is, I said, a lot of people would go back and say, forget all the past. I said, let's go back to the past and find the really powerful parts of our past, and our founding principles were. And I think it matters to all of us because we all work really hard and we all show up feeling like, I think, and we all filter it differently, like we're all part of something bigger than us and we're doing something that matters. And so that's how you build a culture, right? In the end, like everybody's got to wake up every day thinking like I'm part of something bigger than me and what I do matters in some way. And so that's why it matters.
To your point, it matters to great CEOs. That's part of your DNA, and I would argue that's the part of DNA.
And I would say, Bill, here's the thing. Purpose, there's something out there that I made up, I think, purpose washing. Like every company wants to go out and say like, well, we got to like all of what I said. People have to feel like they're part of something bigger. They get up, what they do matters when it puts together. The problem with it is like, and then they hire a bunch of consultants and figure out, you can't do it that way. Which is why I went back to sort of what mattered to me, what connected to our founding principles, and that was sort of embedded in the DNA of this place. Because here's the thing, authenticity matters. People see BS. And if you're making stuff up, it's like, this is our purpose. And it's like a slogan or a tagline. And it's not something that is embedded in the strategy that people can see it, touch it, and feel it. It may be different for every person, but but nonetheless, it's tangible enough to them. If they don't have that, it doesn't matter. It will not change behavior.
Two people can say the same thing, and one it's bullshit, and one it's genuine.
That's correct.
If Sister Teresa says she cared about the lepers, it was genuine.
Yeah.
If a lot of people said they care about lepers, it was just a statement. And people can figure out which is which.
Yeah. And that's why I say when I talk to others, that are trying to transform businesses in the way we have, I said, you gotta figure out, the trick is figuring out what's authentic to you and your leadership group and what's authentic to the organization, right? Because if you're just faking it and it's a bunch of marketing taglines and slogans, then it won't really come to life.
So you set up a question we like to ask, which is, I don't know if your mother and father are
He
still alive.
loves to ask this question, Chris. He
My
loves to
mom
ask it.
and dad, I had dinner. I made them dinner because my dad is 91, my mom is 88, and they're both vaccinated. My mom's doing great. My dad's had some health issues, but he's doing all right. My mom said, "I'm getting tired of having to cook for your father every night." So my daughter and I went over and we had a dinner for four. We made them dinner. They're alive and well.
So what if I were to call them up right now and said, "Little Chris, what are you most proud of?"
Oh, I think they both say that I've stayed who I was. Like I'm the person they knew, and that I'm humble. And I am that because of them. But I think my mom would definitely say it. She says that all the time. I talk to my friend, I tell him, "You're still the same Chris that you used to be when you were a kid." I was like, "Thanks, Mom." But that's important to me because I think it's so easy. Not like I'm so special, by the way, but it's so easy when you get in these big jobs and you have, all the some of it's bad, but you get a lot of adulation and people that telling you what you want to hear, and you could really, I think there's a risk of you sort of getting caught up in it. And I'm human, so I have my failings, plenty of them. We don't have enough time on this podcast to get into all of them, but that's not one of them. I am authentically who I am, and asked my wife, who I've been with since I was 17 years old. I think she would testify to it in addition to my mom. And that's what my parents would say. My mom says it to me all the time. That's what she's most proud of, that I not got caught up in it, that I'm still humble.
By all accounts, you have had one of the great careers in our industry or in any industry, for that matter. If you had to do one thing over differently in your career, what would it be?
Nothing. It's a silly question. Nothing. I wouldn't do anything differently. I have made, that's not to imply that I haven't made an ample number of mistakes, but I've
Right.
learned from all of them. And that's not to imply I haven't been through some incredibly difficult times in an industry that can be very high beta, whether it was, SNL, 9/11, the Great Recession, and now COVID. Those have all been difficult. I've had to make really difficult decisions. I've never been perfect. I've done my best. I've done it, based on a great value system I was given with my parents and that I hold to this day. And I've learned every step of the way. So I really, honestly, am very happy in life. And I am anybody knows me, I think, Bill, you both know me. I'm very forward leaning. I don't dwell on like, oh my God. And, because I think every mistake, every crisis, every problem is an opportunity to learn. And I have a voracious appetite to improve myself.
Let me, if I might, do a last question, Bill. Behind you, Bill, is I see generosity.
Yeah, there you go.
You mentioned Hilton and his charity and philanthropy, and I'm familiar with the Hilton Foundation and a lot of things they do.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your own, what philanthropy means to you personally and to the company, because I know you are. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of that I'm still figuring out. I am very interested in helping make the world a little bit better place in all sorts of ways. I do that now in my local community in a myriad of different ways. We obviously, as an organization, do that on a global basis in a myriad of different ways. We have sort of underlying philosophy on travel with purpose that is part embedded into our DNA of making sure that we're doing good as well as doing well. And so, we are investing in people and places, and in our communities in huge ways, as am I. The Hiltons were a testament to doing well and then doing good. I mean, both Conrad and Bear, and I'll get this wrong, but directionally right, gave, I think, 95 to 98% of their wealth. This just happened, by the way, with Bear, and he just passed away, sadly, at the end of 2019, and he followed in his father's footsteps, and the Hilton Foundation is one of the largest foundations in the world as a result. So the bulk of their wealth has gone to, to doing good in the world. I'm figuring that out. I've been working on that with my advisors and with my family. But my intention is to make sure that whatever I have left that that I haven't blown, that it really does go to doing good in the world. And my wife, my children are all very supportive, and I want them to be part of that. And that's something that we are actively engaged in working on. But day to day, we're doing lots of stuff in our local community, and a lot of stuff in local communities all over the world.
Okay, Chris, I don't want to end on a silly question, so I'm going to ask one more and we'll wrap it up, okay? If for the next generation of leadership in the industry, what advice would you give them?
I would say have faith. I mean, it's a difficult, I think, right now is a difficult time in the industry, but as I've already said, I think what goes down will come back up. I think this industry, pre-COVID was one of the largest and fastest growing industries on earth. 1 in 10 jobs in the world, 1 in 5 new jobs, 10% of global GDP, and amongst the top 3 fastest growing industries on earth. People's desire for travel and experiences of all sorts has been greatly diminished because of COVID, but that's just because they can't move. I don't think that's changed. And as we talked about, I think that the industry, has an opportunity and I believe a responsibility, all of us, not just Hilton, but to make the world a better place. If you think about the social issues, they're different around the world, but certainly here in the U.S., if you think about the environmental issues around the world, we are, I think, not alone, but uniquely in a position to have a very positive impact and do so at scale. And so I'd say to folks like, don't be afraid of it, lean in. It's a great industry, but take the responsibilities we have as an industry seriously and lean in on those too, because I think we can wake up in 5 or 10 years and our industry will be not just back on its feet, but doing great things and having tremendous impact and doing our job in the areas where everybody needs to help to make the world a bit better place.
Yeah, Chris, that's terrific. God love you. Love the spirit. love leading in. That's great. Good for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to see you guys anytime.
Great to see you. Thanks for doing this. Take care, buddy.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Bob.